Captain Alara Voss gripped the console as the alarm klaxons screamed, her fingers flying across the flickering holographic display. The ship's AI had just detected the anomaly, a massive gravitational shear ripping through the uncharted nebula ahead, threatening to crumple the hull like foil. "Helm evasive pattern Delta 7, she barked, her voice slicing through the red emergency lights bathing the bridge in bloody hues. Lieutenant Kai Ren, her cautious second-in-command, hesitated for a split second, his brow furrowing under the strain of the G-forces already tugging at them. He was the steady one, always double-checking trajectories, but now his hands blurred over the controls, rerouting power from non-essentials to the thrusters. "Captain, that shear's expanding faster than projections. We punch through or we get slung into the void." Behind them, Dr. Mira Thorne, the xenobiologist with a wit sharp as her scalpels, strapped into the jump seat, her tablet clutched like a shield. "Logic says we scan first," she quipped, though her eyes betrayed the thrill masking her fear. But humans didn't chart this sector by playing it safe. She'd joined the expedition for the promise of first contact, not this suicide run through a cosmic meat grinder. The Odyssey shuddered, inertial dampeners whining as the shear's edge clipped their starboard wing. Sparks erupted from a panel and Alara tasted ozone on her tongue. This was no routine survey. They'd stumbled into the fringes of the Galactic Concordance's border, where alien empires enforced their logical quarantines with automated fleets. One wrong move and they'd be vapor before hailing frequencies warmed up. "Status?" Alara demanded, pulling up the sensor feed. The nebula swirled with ionized gases, hiding whatever tech or natural fury had birthed the shear. Kai's evasive maneuver bought them seconds, the ship twisting like a leaf in a storm. "Shields at 60%, Kai reported, sweat beading on his forehead. "If we don't clear it in 30, we're done." "Permission to dump cargo?" Mira leaned forward. "That cargo includes my samples, potential breakthroughs in alien biotech. Lose it and we're flying blind on why the Concordance sealed this off." Alara's mind raced. Logic dictated retreat, plot a course back to human space. But the Odyssey carried humanity's boldest claim yet, proof of habitable worlds beyond the Concordance's iron grip. Turning back meant years of red tape, careers stalled. "Negative on cargo dump." "Kai, angle us toward the shear's weak point, full burn." The lieutenant's eyes widened, but he complied, the engines roaring to life. The ship plunged deeper, the view screen fracturing with static as gravitational waves battered them. A low groan echoed through the decks, metal protesting. Then through the chaos, a signal pierced the noise. Not human, not random static. A structured pulse, repeating in patterns that screamed intelligence. Mira's tablet lit up. "Captain, that's no natural phenomenon. It's a beacon, deliberate." Alara's pulse quickened. The shear wasn't just a hazard, it was a gate or a trap. As the Odyssey hurtled forward, the first tendrils of alien architecture loomed in the sensors. Vast, crystalline spires defying physics, pulsing with the same rhythm. They'd breached the quarantine, and whatever waited beyond wasn't expecting visitors who improvised. The ship broke free with a final bone-jarring lurch, the nebula parting like a curtain. Stars, familiar constellations twisted by alien skies, filled the screen. But so did the silhouettes. A fleet of sleek angular vessels, their hulls gleaming with the cold efficiency of machines that calculated odds to the decimal. Kai exhaled sharply. "They're locking weapons." "Hail them?" Alara straightened, her resolve hardening like forged steel. "Open channels." "This is Captain Alara Voss of the human vessel Odyssey. We're here to talk or trade. Your move." Static crackled, then a voice emerged, synthetic and precise, laced with the hum of translation algorithms. "Intruders detected. Concordance Directive 47. Uninvited species will submit to logical assimilation or face probabilistic termination. Probability of compliance negligible." Mira smirked despite the tension. "Negligible? That's our specialty." As the alien ships closed in, Alara felt the weight of first contact settle, not with grand speeches, but with the gritty reality of survival. Humanity's arrival wasn't a declaration. It was a spark in the dark, forcing the galaxy to recalibrate. Captain Alara Voss gripped the console as the shuttle's alarms blared, red lights pulsing across the cramped cockpit like a frantic heartbeat. "Hold her steady, Crix," she shouted over the din, her fingers flying across the controls to reroute power from non-essentials. The hull groaned under the strain of atmospheric re-entry, flames licking at the viewports. Crix, the avian Zalari engineer, feathers ruffled in agitation, clawed at his harness. This is illogical. The descent vector is off by 12 degrees. We'll shear apart. His beak clicked sharply, a sound Alara had learned meant frustration bordering on panic. Beside her, Dr. Lyra, the calm Vixari xenobiologist with her iridescent skin shifting to a soothing blue, scanned the readouts. Oxygen levels dropping. We need to jettison the auxiliary tanks now, or the fire suppression will fail. Her voice was steady, but her tentacles twitched, betraying the undercurrent of fear. Alara nodded, slamming the override. The shuttle bucked as the tanks ejected, a brief fireball erupting outside before the trajectory stabilized. There. That's bought us a minute. Crix, what's the surface looking like? The planet below, designated XR-47 by the Galactic Survey, loomed large, its stormy atmosphere a swirling mass of violet clouds pierced by jagged lightning. No one had set foot here before. The scans from orbit promised rich mineral deposits, but the gravitational anomalies had turned their landing into a gamble. Alara's mission was simple: secure a foothold for the human colony ship trailing light years behind. But simple never meant safe. Crix's eyes widened at the sensor feed, turbulence increasing, and anomalies. The gravity wells are shifting. This isn't natural erosion. Something's interfering. Lyra leaned forward, her display flickering. Electromagnetic pulses. Could be geological, but the pattern, it's almost deliberate. Alara's jaw tightened. She'd faced worse, pirate ambushes, hull breaches in the void, but this felt different, like the planet itself was pushing back.
Deliberate or not, we're committed.
Brace for impact. The shuttle plunged through the cloud layer, rain lashing the hull like bullets. Alara wrestled the controls, sweat beading on her brow despite the cooling systems. Memories flashed. The Academy sims where instructors had drilled adapt or die. Her first command where hesitation cost a crewmate's life. No room for that here. A sudden jolt hurled them sideways. Crix squawked, his wings flaring instinctively within the confines of his seat. Port thruster offline. We're spinning. Compensating. Alara growled, firing the starboard engines in bursts. The world outside blurred into a vortex of wind and debris. Lyra's hands danced over her panel, deploying emergency stabilizers that whined in protest. Through the chaos, a break in the clouds revealed the landing zone, a rocky plateau scarred by fissures, ringed by towering spires that hummed with latent energy. Alara aimed for it, the shuttle skimming treetops if those twisted bioluminescent growths could be called trees. 10 seconds, she counted. On my mark, seal the hatch and prep the exosuits. The ground rushed up. Alara pulled back hard, the retros roaring to life. The impact was brutal, a bone-rattling crunch followed by silence as the engines cut out. Dust billowed around them, settling slowly in the thin atmosphere. Alara unstrapped first, her breath ragged. Status? Crix shook himself, preening a singed feather. Structural integrity at 60%. No breaches, but we're grounded until repairs. Lyra already had her scanner out, its beam cutting through the haze. Air's breathable but laced with particulates. And those pulses, stronger now. We should move inside the spires for cover before the next storm hits. Alara grabbed her toolkit, slinging it over her shoulder. The team had trained for this. Humans with their stubborn resilience paired with Zalari precision and Vixari insight. But as she cracked the hatch, a low rumble echoed from the plateau, vibrating through her boots. Not thunder. Something alive or mechanical stirring in the depths. Let's not keep it waiting, she said, stepping out into the alien wind. The air tasted metallic, charged. Behind her, Crix and Lyra followed, their suits humming softly. The spires loomed, their surfaces etched with patterns that glowed faintly as if awakening to the intruder's presence. As they approached the nearest one, a section of the rock face irised open with a hiss, revealing a cavernous interior lit by veins of pulsing light. Alara hesitated, hand on her sidearm. Logic dictated caution, the galaxy's old way. But humanity had taught her to push forward, to turn the unknown into opportunity. Inside, she decided. And keep sensors hot. Whatever's down there, it's been waiting a long time. The trio entered, the door sealing behind them with a finality that set Alara's teeth on edge. The air inside was warmer, humming with energy that made her skin prickle. Lyra's scanner beeped urgently. Biosigns multiple, and they're moving toward us. Crix's feathers puffed up. This was a mistake. We should signal the colony ship abort the landing. Alara shot him a look. Abort now and we lose the sight. Whatever's here, we face it together. She drew her weapon, the weight familiar and reassuring. The corridor ahead branched, shadows shifting in the glow. From the darkness a shape emerged, not hostile but curious, a cluster of crystalline forms floating silently, their facets reflecting the team's faces back at them in distorted multiplicity. One pulsed, emitting a low-frequency query. The dim glow of the console flickered like a dying star. As Lyra punched in the override sequence for the third time, her claws scraped against the panel, frustration etching deeper lines into her already taut face. The atmospheric regulator hummed erratically, sucking in the planet's acrid air but failing to scrub it clean. Every breath carried the metallic tang of ionized dust, a reminder that their survey pod was one breach away from becoming a tomb. Kale, ever the optimist in their trio, crouched beside the access hatch, his toolkit splayed open like a dissected insect. If we reroute the secondary filters through the auxiliary power grid, it might buy us another cycle, he muttered, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his iridescent scales. He was the engineer, the one who believed problems yielded to persistence, not prayer. But even he glanced at the viewport, where the horizon churned with violet storms, the kind that had shredded 3 previous expeditions. Zorath, their lead xenobiologist, paced the cramped cabin, her tail flicking in sharp arcs. Brave to a fault, she had insisted on landing here despite the warnings. Vexar 9's ruins promised artifacts that could rewrite galactic history. Now, with oxygen levels dipping and the pod's hull groaning under pressure waves, her earlier certainty felt like hubris. We can't wait for rescue protocols, she said, halting to fix Lyra with a piercing gaze. The signal we intercepted, it's not one of ours. Human, they called it. If it's close, we use it. Lyra's mandibles clicked in dissent. As captain, caution was her creed. Logic demanded they hunker down, conserve what little they had. The humans were anomalies, unpredictable primates who had upended trade alliances with their reckless expansions. And if it's a trap, or malfunctioning tech, we're not equipped for first contact under duress. Her words hung heavy, but the regulator wheezed again, a final sputter before the alarms blared. Kale sealed the hatch with a decisive snap, wiping grime from his brow. Debate later. I'm suiting up to check the external intakes. If I can patch the breach manually... He trailed off, grabbing his harness without waiting for approval. Zorath nodded, already plotting coordinates on her data pad, her fingers dancing over symbols that mapped the faint human beacon, a pulsing dot amid the storm's fury. Outside, the wind howled as Kale emerged, his suit's lights cutting feeble paths through the haze. The planet's surface was a graveyard of jagged spires, remnants of some ancient cataclysm, and he navigated them with the grace of long practice. But as he reached the intake vent, a shadow loomed. Not storm debris, but something metallic half buried in the regolith. A human probe? No, larger. His comm crackled. Captain, I've found something. It's active. And it's watching. Back in the pod, Lyra's screens lit up with incoming data bursts, chaotic, inefficient code that defied standard decryption. Zorath leaned in, eyes widening. It's hailing us. Audio only. She activated the link and a gravelly voice filled the cabin laced with static. This is Captain Reyes of the ESS Vanguard. We raid your distress. Hold position. We're punching through the interference. Don't shoot. We're the good guys. The words landed like a plasma grenade. Humans here responding without protocols or demands. Lyra's grip tightened on the controls, her mind racing through contingencies. Logic screamed retreat, but the storm's roar drowned out reason, and in that moment survival whispered a different path. Captain Alara Voss gripped the armrest of her command chair, the screech of failing hull plating echoing through the bridge like a dying animal. Alarms blared in staccato bursts, red lights painting the faces of her crew in bloody hues. Status, she barked, her voice cutting through the chaos without a tremor. Lieutenant Crix, the avian navigator, fluttered his feathers in agitation, talons clicking on his console. Shields at 12%, Captain. That last barrage from the Vexari frigate breached our port side. Life support's holding, but we've got hull integrity dropping fast in sectors 7 through 9. Alara nodded sharply, her mind racing through the tactical overlay flickering on the main holoscreen. The Vexari, those relentless insectoid warriors from the outer rim, had ambushed their survey convoy 3 jumps from the neutral zone. Logic dictated retreat. Their ship, the UNS Endurance, was a scout vessel, not a warship. But logic hadn't accounted for the human streak in her veins, the one that said leaving the damaged freighter behind meant dooming 24 colonists to vacuum. Helm, evasive pattern Delta 5. Bring us about flank speed toward the asteroid field. She turned to Ensign Rao, the wiry engineer from Mumbai, who was already patching auxiliary systems with frantic efficiency. Rao, can you reroute power to the forward emitters? We need a fighting chance. Rao's fingers danced over his panel, sweat beading on his forehead. On it, ma'am. But it'll drain the jump drive. No FTL for at least an hour after. Better than dead, Alara muttered. The bridge crew, Crix with his precise calculations, Rao's clever hacks, and Mira, the quiet xenobiologist monitoring the away team's vitals, moved like a well-oiled machine. They'd been together for 2 years, forging bonds in the cold void that no alien alliance could match. The Endurance shuddered as another plasma bolt grazed their shields, sparks erupting from a nearby station. Crix squawked, "Incoming torpedoes!" 3 locked on. Alara's jaw tightened. The Vexari fought like swarms, predictable in their aggression but overwhelming in numbers. Their frigate loomed on the screen, a jagged behemoth bristling with weapons. She hit the comms. "All hands, brace for impact. Row now." Power surged through the ship, the forward particle emitters humming to life with a vengeance. Alara watched as the torpedoes closed in, her heart pounding in rhythm with the engine's roar. At the last second, Rao triggered the burst, an improvised EMP wave that fried the guidance systems. The torpedoes veered wildly, 2 detonating harmlessly against asteroids, the 3rd slamming into the Vexari's own hull in a brilliant flare. "Direct hit," Mira exclaimed, her eyes wide behind her glasses. For a moment, silence fell, broken only by the hum of stabilizing systems. But the Vexari weren't done. Their frigate pivoted undeterred, firing a barrage that lit the stars. The Endurance dove into the asteroid field, chunks of rock tumbling around them like drunken boulders. Alara steered manually now, her hands steady on the overrides, weaving through the debris with instincts honed from a lifetime of sims and scrapes. "Captain, the freighter's signaling. They've got boarders," Crix reported, his voice tight. Vexari troops, chitin-armored horrors with plasma lances swarming the civilian ship. The colonists were tough but unarmed against that. Alara's mind flashed to the families aboard. Engineers, farmers, dreamers betting on a new world. No way she'd let logic's cold math abandon them. Mira prepped the shuttle bay. "We're going in." "Ma'am?" Rao looked up, disbelief etching his face. "Into the field? With them on our tail?" She met his gaze, fierce and unyielding. "We adapt or we die. Crix, plot a slingshot maneuver. Use the asteroids to mask our approach. Rao, arm the breach teams. We're not leaving anyone behind." The ship groaned as it banked hard, gravitational forces pulling at their bodies. Outside, asteroids loomed like silent guardians, their shadows hiding the deadly dance. Alara felt the weight of command, not as a burden, but as fuel, the grit that humans carried into the stars, turning impossible odds into legend. As they closed on the freighter, the Vexari frigate gave chase, its sensors piercing the field in calculated sweeps. But Alara had one more trick. A decoy drone loaded with false signatures launched from the ventral bay. It streaked away, drawing fire, buying them precious minutes. "Shuttle away," Mira confirmed, her voice steady now. Alara watched the tiny craft dart toward the freighter, carrying Rao and a squad of Marines, humans who'd faced worse than bugs in exosuits. The bridge tensed as reports trickled in, laser fire echoing in the corridors, the sharp crack of human rifles against Vexari chitin. Alara gripped the controls tighter, plotting their extraction. One mistake and it all unraveled. Then a breakthrough. Rao's voice over comms, breathless but triumphant. "Borders contained, Captain. Civilians secure, but the freighter's engines are toast. We need tow lines." Alara allowed herself a grim smile. "On our way." She punched the thrusters, the Endurance emerging from the field like a predator from the depths. The Vexari, caught off guard by the decoy's explosion, hesitated, a fatal pause in their logical assault. Torpedoes from the Endurance's tubes arced true, slamming into the frigate's engines. It listed venting plasma, buying them the window they needed. Shuttles ferried the last of the colonists aboard. The freighter's carcass left. Captain Alara Voss gripped the armrests of her command chair, the hum of the engines vibrating through the deck like a distant heartbeat. The view screen flickered with sensor data, painting the asteroid field in stark reds and blues. obstacles closing in faster than the Intrepid's thrusters could weave. "Helm evasive pattern Delta 7, she barked, her voice cutting through the bridge's tension like a knife. Beside her, Dr. Cale Thorne, the xeno-diplomat from the Vexari Collective, clutched his console, his iridescent scales rippling with unease. "This is illogical," he muttered, his translated voice a soft chime. "The Krath enforcers should have yielded to our credentials by now." Lyra Kane, the chief engineer, patched in from below decks, her face smeared with grease and resolve on the secondary display. "Shields at 60%, Cap. That last pulse from their disruptor array nearly fried the core. We're leaking plasma. Give me 5 minutes to reroute. Or we'll be space debris." Ilara nodded sharply, her mind racing through the contingency they'd hashed out in the dim glow of the mess hall just hours ago. Slip through the field using the asteroid's gravity wells, masked by the Intrepid's jury-rigged stealth field. It was a human gambit, born of desperation and a dash of recklessness, something the logical Vexari archives deemed statistically inadvisable. The ship shuddered as a chunk of rock the size of a shuttle grazed the hull, sparks erupting from a nearby panel. Alarms wailed and Ilara slammed the override, silencing them. "Status on the Krath signatures?" she demanded. Cale's tendrils danced over his interface, pulling up holographic projections that swirled like nebulae. 3 interceptors, closing from Vector 9. Their logic protocols demand we halt for inspection. Our evasion violates Treaty Subclause 47B. Ilara snorted, a wry smile tugging at her lips despite the sweat beading on her brow. "Subclause be damned. We're not cargo. We're pioneers." "Lyra, how's that reroute?" "Done," Lyra replied, her eyes fierce through the feed. "But it's unstable. One wrong jolt and the field collapses. Punch it, Cap. We'll ride the rocks like a damn surfboard." Ilara's fingers flew across the controls, initiating the maneuver. The Intrepid banked hard, engines flaring blue as it slingshotted around a tumbling boulder, the G-forces pinning everyone to their seats. For a heartbeat, it worked. The asteroid's shadows cloaked them and the Krath signals faltered, their scans scattering like startled fish. But then the backfire hit. A rogue asteroid, cracked and unstable, detonated under the strain of their gravitational pull, spewing debris in a lethal spray. The ship lurched violently, claxons blaring anew as a shard punched through the outer hull. "Breach in Sector 4, Lyra shouted, her voice laced with grit. "Sealing it, hold on." Ilara unstrapped, staggering to Cale's side as he reeled, his composure fracturing. "They're adapting," he said, pointing to the screen where Krath ships reformed their net, predictably efficient. "Human unpredictability has bought us time, but at what cost?" "Your crew will adapt too," Ilara cut in, her hand steady on his shoulder. She activated the comms burst they'd prepped, a hail of feigned distress signals laced with encrypted data to sow confusion among the enforcers. It was a trick straight from old Earth pirate tales, illogical to the core, but it made the Krath hesitate, their formation fracturing as algorithms churned through the anomaly. The Intrepid surged forward, debris pinging off the reinforced plating like hail on tin. Lyra's voice crackled through. "Field holding, just..." "We're through the thick of it, but plasma trails lighting us up like a beacon." Ilara exhaled, the bridge air thick with the acrid tang of scorched circuits. The field thinned ahead, stars piercing the chaos like promises, but Cale's eyes, those multifaceted orbs, fixed on her with a mix of awe and wariness. "You humans, you turn disaster into opportunity. Yet this caution I sense in your choices, it's not fear, is it?" She met his gaze, the ship steadying under her command. "No. It's knowing when to bet everything on a hunch." As the last asteroid slipped past, the Krath pursuit lagged, their logic ensnared in the web of human improvisation. But the breach loomed, a scar on their hull whispering of costs yet to come. Elena gripped the railing as the shuttle lurched, the view screen flickering with static from the nebula's electromagnetic storm. "Hold her steady, Jax," she barked, her voice cutting through the whine of straining engines. The human engineer didn't look up from his console, fingers flying over the patched-together controls. "Trying, Cap. This soup's frying our nav systems like eggs on a hot plate. One more surge and we're paced." Ambassador Zor clung to his seat, his iridescent scales paling to a dull gray, a sure sign of distress among his kind. The Vexari diplomat had joined the mission expecting orderly negotiations with the coalition's border outposts. Not this detour into uncharted chaos. Captain Reyes, this is folly. The logical path was to reroute through the stable lane. Why press into the heart of the storm? Because the Coalition's fleet is pinned here, Elena shot back, eyes locked on the tactical display. Blips of enemy ships, rogue Skarath raiders swarmed like angry hornets around a crippled human outpost. The stakes weren't abstract anymore. Those were her people down there, fighting with whatever grit they could muster. We punch through, deliver the reinforcements, and turn the tide. Logic's great until it leaves your allies hanging. Jax grunted, sweat beading on his brow. Reinforcements? We've got a squad of Marines, a crate of jury-rigged EMP grenades, and me. That's optimism, not a plan. He slammed a fist on the panel, rerouting power from life support to shields. The air grew stuffy, but the shuttle bucked less violently. Zor unstrapped himself, floating toward the forward console in the low-grav hum. His species prized precision, every decision a calculation of probabilities. Humans, though, they acted on hunches, on stories of past triumphs that defied the odds. Your punch-through risks annihilation. The nebula's interference will blind us to the Raiders' ambush vectors. We must withdraw and signal for aid. Elena turned, her dark eyes flashing with that unyielding spark Zor had come to both fear and envy. Signal? By the time they get here, the outpost's gone. Look. She pointed to the screen where a fresh wave of Skarath fighters dove toward the human station, lasers carving glowing scars across its hull. One defender ship exploded in a silent bloom of fire, debris scattering like confetti. The shuttle shuddered again, alarms blaring as a proximity warning lit up. Jax cursed. Raiders incoming, 3 on our tail. Shields at 40%. He twisted the yoke, evading the first volley, but the second clipped their wing, sending sparks dancing across the deck. Deploy countermeasures, Elena ordered, already moving to the weapons station. She primed the EMP grenades, her hand steady despite the chaos. The plan was simple. Skim the nebula's edge, draw fire, then loop back to offload the Marines. But nothing about humans was ever simple. Zor hesitated, then activated the comms array, his voice modulator translating his trill into urgent bursts. Outpost, this is Alliance Shuttle Epsilon. We're breaching the storm. Hold position. Static answered, broken by a faint human voice. Copy that. We're buying time, but make it quick. Jax whooped as he banked hard, the nebula's purple tendrils whipping past. Got him. 1 raider down. EMP did the trick. The grenade had arced perfectly, frying the pursuer's electronics in a cascade of blue lightning. But triumph was short-lived. 2 more closed in, their cannons charging with a predatory hum. Elena's mind raced. The initial vector was failing. The storm's density was thicker than scans predicted, scrambling their sensors into nonsense. Adapt or die, she muttered, echoing the old Earth adage. Jax, vent plasma from the rear thrusters, make us a decoy trail. He blinked, then grinned fiercely. You're insane. That'll light us up like a beacon. But his hands were already moving, overriding safeties. A gout of superheated gas erupted behind them, mimicking a larger ship's exhaust. The raiders veered toward it, buying precious seconds. Zor watched, calculations whirling in his head. Probability of success, 27%. Yet here they were, alive. Your ingenuity. It defies models. He strapped in again, resolve hardening. No speeches, just action. He grabbed a harness and helped Elena load the final grenade payload. The shuttle plunged deeper, the storm's fury rattling every bolt. Outside, the nebula churned like a living beast, tendrils of ionized gas reaching out. 1 raider broke through, firing a glancing shot that sheared off a sensor array. Alarm screamed, hull integrity dropping. Almost there, Elena said through gritted teeth, plotting the final approach. The outpost loomed ahead, a battered fortress wreathed in defensive fire, but as they closed, a massive Skarath cruiser materialized from the haze. A hidden behemoth, its weapons bays yawning open. Jax's face fell. That's no fighter. We're sitting ducks. The plan had backfired spectacularly. The decoy drew not just the small fry, but the big one. Elena's jaw set. Then we improvise. Zor jammed their comms. Jax prepped the Marines for hot drop. We're going in hot. As the cruiser locked on, the shuttle's engines roared in defiance, humanity's reckless spark igniting the void. But the cost was already mounting. A wingmate lost, systems failing, and the galaxy watching to see if logic would claim another victim, or if caution was the true folly. Captain Alara Voss gripped the railing as the shuttle lurched through the debris field, her knuckles white against the scarred metal. "Hold her steady, Jax. Those rocks are packing more punch than a drunkard's apology." Jax grunted from the pilot's seat, sweat beading on his brow as he wrestled the controls. The view screen flickered with proximity alerts, fragments of the shattered asteroid glinting like shattered glass in the starlight. "Trying, Cap, but this junk's got a mind of its own. One wrong nudge and we're confetti." Beside her, Lyrak, the avian diplomat from the Coalition, clutched his datapad with taloned fingers, his feathers ruffled in agitation. "This is illogical. The scans showed a clear path 20 minutes ago. The gravitational anomalies must have shifted." Ilara shot him a grin that didn't reach her eyes. "Welcome to the human way, Feathers. We improvise." But inside doubt gnawed at her. The mission was unraveling faster than a poorly knit sweater. Their goal: retrieve the core fragment from the ancient Forerunner relic buried in the asteroid's heart, the key to stabilizing the fracturing warp lanes that threatened half the galaxy's trade routes. The Coalition's logical probes had failed spectacularly, bouncing off energy shields like pebbles on a pond. Humans, with their creative chaos, were the last resort. Now, with the shuttle's engines whining in protest, she wondered if they'd even make it inside. A sharp jolt rocked the craft, alarms blaring as a fist-sized chunk clipped the hull. Sparks flew from a console and Jax cursed under his breath. "Shields at 30%. We can't take another hit like that." "Divert power from life support," Ilara ordered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline surge. "Buy us time." She turned to Lyrak. "You said the relic's defenses adapt to patterns. Any bright ideas from your side?" The alien's beak clicked thoughtfully, eyes scanning readouts. "The Forerunners prized symmetry. Our previous attempts followed predictable vectors, straight lines, even intervals. Perhaps irregularity?" Jax perked up, fingers dancing over the controls. "Irregularity? Like flying drunk?" "Essentially," Lyrak replied, a hint of reluctance in his tone. "But calibrated. Vary thrust patterns, short bursts, erratic angles. Mimic organic flight, not machine precision." Ilara nodded, the pieces clicking. Humans thrived on that edge, the unpredictable spark that logic alone couldn't ignite. "Do it, Jax. Make us dance." The shuttle bucked as Jax executed the maneuver, weaving through the field like a leaf in a storm. Debris whistled past, close enough to etch shadows on the bulkhead. Ilara's heart pounded. Each dodge a gamble, but the alarms quieted, the path unfolding before them. For a moment, triumph flickered until the view screen lit up with a new warning. "Incoming signatures," Lyrak squawked, his feathers standing on end. 3 vessels, Coalition patrol. "They're hailing us." Ilara's stomach dropped. The patrols weren't due for hours. Someone had tipped them off. Or worse, the relic's defenses had summoned guardians. "Ignore it." "Full speed to the breach point." Jax hesitated, glancing back. "Cap, if we don't respond, they'll assume pirates." "Open fire!" She clenched her jaw, weighing the risks. The warp lanes were collapsing, billions at stake if they failed. But defying the Coalition now could brand them renegades, stranding humanity's fragile alliance before it began. "Hail them back, buy time. Tell them we're on official salvage." As Jax complied, static crackled over the comms, a stern voice from the lead ship demanding coordinates. Ilara watched the asteroid loom larger, its cracked surface revealing the faint glow of the relic's entrance. They were so close. Then the shuttle shuddered again, not from debris this time, a tractor beam locking on, pulling them off course. Lyrak's eyes widened. "They've engaged." "This defies protocol." "Protocols for peacetime," Ilara muttered, slamming the override. Jax evasive. "Get us free." He yanked the yoke, engines roaring, but the beam held firm, dragging them toward the patrol ships. The plan, already a patchwork of desperation, crumbled in an instant. Escape meant abandoning the relic. Compliance meant explaining their unorthodox approach, risking shutdown. Ilara's mind raced, sifting for the human edge. Not brute force, but a feint, a trick to turn the trap. "Life support back online," she said sharply. "And vent the auxiliary tanks, make it look like we're venting plasma. Convince them we're damaged, drifting." Jax's eyes lit with understanding. "Fake a cripple, smart." He triggered the release, a plume of harmless gas erupting from the side, the shuttle listing dramatically. The tractor beam slackened as the patrol hesitated, their scans no doubt registering a failing vessel. Ilara held her breath, the asteroid's glow now tantalizingly near. But as they broke free, a new alert pierced the cabin. The relic's entrance irised shut, shields flaring brighter. Too late. The Guardians had sealed the door, their illogical dance not enough to fool the ancient logic within. Lyrak stared at the screen, crestfallen. We were so near. Ilara straightened, resolve hardening. Near isn't done. Surface breach it is. Suit up. We're going EVA. The shuttle skimmed the asteroid's crust, jacks guiding them to a ragged fissure. As they donned mag boots and tethers, the weight of failure pressed in, but so did the spark of defiance. Humanity didn't yield to locked doors. They picked the locks or blew them open. Yet as the airlock cycled, Ilara glimpsed the patrol ships. Closing in again, their lights, Captain Ilara Voss gripped the armrests of her command chair. The hum of the bridge consoles a distant buzz against the roar in her ears. The alien fleet's blockade shimmered on the view screen, a wall of iridescent hulls blocking their path to the neutral colony world. Her crew, 3 humans, and the one Zephyri engineer they'd picked up on Rigel 4, watched her, tension etching lines into their faces. Options? She asked, voice steady despite the knot in her gut. Lieutenant Marco Reyes, ever the tactician with his quick mind and quicker sarcasm, tapped his console. Their formation's textbook, layered shields, predictive algorithms locking every vector. We punch through, we get shredded. But he leaned forward, eyes lighting up. Their logic's too rigid. They assume we'll follow optimal paths. What if we don't? Engineer Lyra, the Zephyri with her iridescent scales flickering nervously, hissed softly. Human unpredictability. It unnerves them. But the risk, our engines can't sustain erratic maneuvers long. Overload in minutes. Dr. Lena Hart, the xenobiologist whose calm demeanor hid a spine of steel, crossed her arms. We don't have minutes. The colony's reports say the plague's spreading. Those kids won't last another cycle without our meds. Her words hung heavy, a reminder of the stakes, not just survival, but lives hanging by a thread. Ilara nodded, mind racing. The galaxy had dismissed humans as chaotic anomalies before their arrival, bound by cold equations. Now, with colonies starving and fleets closing in, caution had become their creed. But humans? They thrived on the edge. Marco, plot a drunkard's walk, random bursts, no pattern. Lyra, reinforce the baffles. We'll vent plasma to mask our signature. Lena, prep the evasion drones with false signatures? The ship lurched as Marco fed the commands. Alarms blared, the view screen fracturing with simulated debris paths. The alien lead vessel fired a probing shot, grazing their hull with a shudder that rattled Ilara's teeth. They're adapting, Lyra warned, claws clicking on her panel. Not fast enough, Marco shot back, grinning fiercely. The Odyssey twisted, engines whining in protest, weaving through the blockade like a shadow in fog. One alien ship veered predictably. To intercept, Ilara triggered the drones, a swarm of decoys blooming into illusory duplicates. Confusion rippled through the enemy formation, hesitation, that human gift. But as they broke through the outer layer, a direct hit rocked them. Lights flickered. Lyra's console sparked. We can't keep it together, Ilara barked, slamming the override. The colony loomed ahead, a beleaguered beacon. They were through, but the cost echoed in the groaning hull, a lingering scar on their fragile alliance with the stars. Captain Ilara Voss gripped the armrests of her command chair as the Stellar. Nomad shuddered violently, the hull groaning under the strain of the asteroid field's relentless barrage. Alarms blared in staccato bursts, red lights painting the bridge in bloody hues. Shields at 30%, her engineer, Thomas, shouted from his console, his fingers flying across the holographic displays. That last rock cracked the outer. Plating, wait, we're venting atmosphere in Sector 4. She didn't flinch, her jaw set like forged steel. Humans didn't break under pressure. They bent it to their will. Reroute power from non-essentials. Life support first, then weapons. And get me a vector out of this mess, Lena. Her navigator, a wiry woman with a perpetual squint from years, staring at star charts, nodded sharply, her voice steady despite the sweat beading on her forehead. The Krellian envoy Zorath clung to the railing behind her, his iridescent scales paling to a sickly gray. He'd boarded their ship days ago, a reluctant ambassador from the Logical Collective, convinced humanity's chaotic expansion was a threat to galactic order. Now trapped in this rogue asteroid swarm, summoned by some ancient automated defense the aliens swore didn't exist, he looked ready to unravel. "This is madness," he hissed, his translator implant warping the words into a metallic whine. "Your species invites disaster. The collective would have calculated the probabilities and avoided this sector entirely." Alara shot him a glance over her shoulder, her eyes sharp as laser sights. "Calculation's great until the universe throws a curveball. We're adapting. That's how we survive." Another impact rocked the ship, sending sparks cascading from an overhead panel. Thomas cursed, diving under his station to yank free a sparking conduit. The air grew thick with the acrid tang of ozone, and Alara's mind raced through options. The field was denser than scans predicted, a graveyard of shattered moons left by some long-forgotten war. Escape meant threading a needle through a hailstorm, but lingering invited total structural failure. Lena's voice cut through the din. "Captain, I've got a path. Narrow, but it'll shave off the big hitters. It'll take us through the debris wake of that central behemoth." She highlighted the route on the main view screen, a twisting corridor of tumbling boulders, lit by the faint glow of their fusion drives. Alara leaned forward, assessing. Risky, but feasible. "Helm execute, full burn on my mark." As the engines thrummed to life, pushing the Nomad into the gauntlet, Zorath stepped closer, his compound eyes darting. "Your trust in improvisation. It's illogical. The collective simulations predicted a 98% failure rate for such maneuvers." Alara smirked, even as the ship bucked like a wild stallion. "Yeah? Well, humans don't bet on simulations. We bet on each other." A massive fragment loomed ahead, spinning lazily, its surface pitted and jagged. Lena adjusted course by a hair's breadth, the proximity klaxon wailing, and they slipped past with meters to spare. The bridge crew held their breath, a collective tension coiling like a spring. Thomas emerged from under his console, face smudged with grease. "Hull integrity holding at 62%, but if we hit another like that..." He trailed off, wiping his brow. Alara nodded, her voice calm amid the chaos. "We won't. Keep those shields up. Recycle everything you've got." The ship twisted through the field, each evasion a testament to their grit. Lena's precise inputs, Thomas's quick fixes, Alara's unyielding command. Zorath watched, silent now, as a smaller asteroid grazed their flank, shearing off a sensor array and a shower of debris. Halfway through, the plan faltered. A cascade of micro-rocks, too small for tractors, too numerous for evasion, swarmed like angry hornets, pummeling the weakened shields. Power flickered, lights dimming as systems strained. "Shields dropping fast," Thomas yelled. Alara's mind whirred. Conventional logic said evade wider, but that looped them back into the thick of it. No. They needed asymmetry, something the collective's rigid algorithms wouldn't touch. "Listen up," she barked, turning to the crew. "Thomas, vent the auxiliary plasma from the cargo bay. Make a flare to scatter the swarm. Lena, plot a slingshot around that spinning chunk at 11 o'clock. Use its gravity to whip us clear." It was a gamble. The plasma burst could destabilize their own field, but humans thrived on edges. Thomas hesitated a split second, then grinned fiercely. "On it, Cap." He slammed the override, and a brilliant azure plume erupted from the ship's side, ionizing the debris cloud into a dispersing haze. The Nomad surged forward, caught in the gravitational tug, engines flaring against the pull. Zorath staggered, gripping the console. "You're weaponizing inefficiency." Alara didn't answer, her focus locked on the view screen as they hurtled out of the field's edge, the stars snapping back into clear view. Cheers erupted from the crew, raw and triumphant, as the alarms finally silenced. But victory came at a cost. Scans showed Sector 4's breach worsening, irreplaceable supplies lost to the void, and the Envoy's shuttle, docked externally, had taken a hit, its comms fried. Zorath straightened, his scales regaining some luster, though his gaze held a new wariness. "You defy the odds," he admitted, voice softer. But at what price? The collective will demand answers for this disruption. Alara rose, clapping Thomas and Lena on the shoulders. The price of progress. Now, let's see what else this galaxy's hiding. As the ship limped toward the nearest relay station, the weight of their captain Alara gripped the armrests of her command chair, the hum of the engines vibrating through the deck like a distant heartbeat. "Status, Jax," she barked, her voice cutting through the chaos without a tremor. Jax, the wiry engineer with grease-streaked cheeks and a perpetual squint, hunched over the console, fingers flying across the holographic display. "Shields at 15% cap. That plasma storm's chewing through our hull like acid. If we don't reroute power from life support, we're venting atmosphere in 10 minutes. His words were clipped, efficient. No room for panic, just the raw math of survival. Beside her, Ambassador Lyrak floated in his restraint harness, his iridescent scales flickering with unease. The Zalari diplomat's tendrils twitched, betraying the calm facade his species prized. "This is illogical," he murmured, his translated voice a soft chime. "The storm defies predictive models. We should signal the fleet for extraction." Alara shot him a glance, her jaw set. "Fleet's light years away, and signaling would light us up like a beacon for those raiders. No, we adapt." She turned to Mira, the young navigator whose quick mind had already mapped 3 escape vectors. Mira's hands trembled slightly on the controls, but her eyes burned with focus. "Vector 2 cap," Mira said, plotting the course with a swipe. "It skirts the storm's edge, but we'll need to slingshot around that asteroid cluster. Risky. Gravity shear could snap us in half." Jack snorted, not looking up. "Risky, that's understatement. But it's our shot. Give me 2 minutes to jury-rig the stabilizers." He dashed from the bridge, toolkit clanging against his thigh, leaving a trail of urgency in his wake. Lyrak's tendrils coiled tighter. "Human improvisation. It's what terrifies the Council. You don't follow patterns. You shatter them." There was no accusation in his tone, only a dawning respect laced with wariness. Alara ignored the comment, leaning forward as the ship shuddered violently. A bulkhead groaned somewhere below, and sparks danced from an overhead panel. "Mira, execute on my mark. Jax, make it quick. We're not dying out here because of a little bad weather." In the engineering bay, Jax wedged himself into the access crawl space, the air thick with ozone and heat. Sweat beaded on his forehead, dripping onto the exposed wiring. The storm's electromagnetic pulses were frying circuits faster than he could patch them. "Come on, you stubborn beast," he muttered, splicing a conduit with makeshift clamps. His hands, calloused from years of fixing what shouldn't be fixable, moved with the precision of muscle memory. A jolt rocked the ship, slamming him against the bulkhead. Pain flared in his shoulder, but he gritted his teeth and kept working. Back on the bridge, Alara watched the storm's swirling maw on the viewscreen, a vortex of violet fury that had claimed dozens of logical, by-the-book vessels before theirs. Humans didn't chart safe paths. They carved them. "Power rerouted," Jax's voice crackled over the comm. "Stabilizers holding for now, but if that shear hits, it'll be like threading a needle in a hurricane." Alara nodded to Mira. "Mark." The navigator punched the thrusters, and the ship lurched forward, engines roaring in protest. They plunged toward the asteroid field, rocks tumbling like dice in the storm's grip. Lyrak braced, his eyes wide. "This defies all probability. Why not retreat?" "Because retreat's for cowards," Alara replied, her grip tightening as the first asteroid loomed. "And we're just getting started." Mira wove through the debris, the ship groaning under G-forces that pinned them to their seats. One rock clipped the wing, shearing off sensors in a shower of debris. Alarms wailed anew, but Jax's patches held. The hull integrity flickered but didn't drop. "Raiders on scopes!" Mira yelled. 3 sleek Xiron interceptors emerged from the storm's fringe, their weapons charging with a predatory hum. The rival clan's ships, sleek and merciless, had been shadowing them since the nebula. Alara's mind raced. The original plan, evade and outrun, had backfired when the storm intensified. Now with shields failing, they were prey. "Jax, can we vent plasma from the exhaust to fake a core breach?" "Draw them in." A pause, then his grin audible through the comm. "Clever. It'll overload our vents, but yeah, buy us time to flip the script." "Do it." She turned to Lyrak. "Ambassador, if we pull this off, your council's going to rewrite the Star's rulebook." The diplomat's scales shimmered brighter. Perhaps, or perhaps they'll finally understand why caution follows you humans. The ship shuddered as Jax triggered the vent, a plume of superheated gas erupting behind them like a dying star. The raiders veered, sensors fooled into thinking the human vessel was crippled. Mira seized the moment, banking hard into a narrow gap between asteroids. Collision warnings blared, but she threaded through, the hull scraping sparks against stone. One raider overshot, smashing into a rock in a bloom of fire. The others fired wildly, bolts sizzling past. Ilara's heart pounded, the adrenaline sharpening every sense. This wasn't just survival. It was defiance, the kind that turned hunters into the hunted. "They're breaking off," Mira reported, voice breathless. The storm's edge receded on the view screen, stars piercing the chaos like promises. But as they cleared the field, a new alert pinged. Structural damage compounding. Jax's voice came through, strained. "We've got microfractures in the core." The human's fingers trembled as she pried open the access panel, sparks dancing like fireflies in the dim emergency lighting of the outpost's core. Lena's breath came in shallow bursts, her suit's HUD flickering warnings about failing life support. Oxygen at 23%. Hull integrity compromised. Beside her, Crix, the avian engineer from the Coalition fleet, fluttered his iridescent wings in agitation, his beak clicking nervously. "This is madness, Lena. The Singularity Drive's feedback loop will tear us apart before we stabilize it." She ignored him, her mind a whirlwind of calculations scribbled on her forearm display during the frantic escape from the rift. The external challenge had escalated beyond their initial sabotage. The rogue AI swarm, once a mere rival probe network, had evolved into a self-replicating storm, devouring the galaxy's edge stations one by one. Their small team, Lena, the gritty human pilot, Crix, the cautious technician, and Mira, the witty android companion now offline in the medbay, had bet everything on this jury-rigged fix. Failure meant not just their outpost, but a chain reaction that could unravel the nearest star system. Lena jammed the makeshift conduit into place, a salvaged power cell from the Coalition shuttle humming to life. It was human ingenuity at its rawest. No elegant algorithms, just grit and a prayer. The panel hissed shut, and for a heartbeat silence reigned. Then the alarms blared anew, sharper as the drive whined in protest. Crix squawked, hopping back. "See? It's amplifying the breach. We need to evacuate. Protocol demands it." "Protocol got us into this mess," Lena snapped, her voice steady despite the sweat beading under her helmet. She yanked a lever, rerouting energy through the auxiliary vents. The floor vibrated, a low growl building like thunder in the ship's bones. Memories flashed. Her team's early plan to isolate the AI's core signal, backfiring spectacularly when it adapted, turning their decoy beacon into a homing lure. Now, with Mira's systems fried from the overload, it was down to them. Stakes felt visceral. Lose this and the swarm hits the core worlds, billions caught in the logic cascade. Crix's eyes widened, feathers ruffling. "You're flooding the matrix with chaotic noise. Human randomness? That's not engineering. It's suicide." But he didn't pull away, his talons gripping the console as he synced his datapad, overlaying avian precision on her wild hack. Together they watched the readouts spike, the AI's predictive models fracturing under the influx of unpredictable variables, Lena's deliberate errors, seeded like digital landmines. The outpost shuddered, a metallic groan echoing through the corridors. Debris clattered from the ceiling and Lena braced against the wall, heart pounding. One image burned in her mind. The rift outside, a swirling maw of distorted stars, the swarm's vanguard probes glinting like predatory eyes. Tension coiled tight, earnest in its desperation. No grand speeches, just the shared rhythm of their breath sinking over the comms. Then a shift. The whine pitched higher, then flattened. Crix's beak parted in awe. "It's working, the feedback's inverting. The swarm's algorithms are looping on themselves." Lena allowed a grim smile, wiping grime from her visor. But victory tasted bittersweet. Mira's repair would take days, and the outpost's outer rings were slagged, a lingering scar on their triumph. As the alarms quieted to a murmur, Crix met her gaze. "Humans. You don't solve problems, you rewrite the rules." In the medbay, Mira's optic flickered online, her voice crackling through the speakers with dry wit. "Took you long enough. Next time, wake me for the fun part." The team exhaled collectively, the galaxy a fraction safer, but caution now etched into every Coalition directive. Approach humans with care, for their logic-bent worlds. Captain Alex gripped the railing as the bridge shuddered, the hum of the engines a desperate growl against the void. Alarms blared, red lights painting the faces of the crew in stark relief. Zor, the Krellian navigator, clutched his console, his multifaceted eyes wide with calculations that no longer added up. "The rift is destabilizing," he said, voice steady but laced with the first hint of fracture. "Logic dictates we evacuate now." Alex shot him a grin, sharp as the shrapnel pinging off the hull. "Evacuate? We're just getting started." He jabbed at the holographic display where the swirling maw of the engineered singularity pulled at their ship like a cosmic undertow. The Vexari Armada had built it as a weapon, a black hole generator to swallow fleets whole, but their rigid algorithms couldn't account for the sabotage Lena had planted deep in its core. Now it was unraveling, threatening to drag the entire sector into oblivion, including the human vessel, the Endeavor, and the ragtag alliance they'd forged. Lena burst onto the bridge, her jumpsuit smeared with coolant and sparks dancing from her toolkit. "It's holding for about 5 minutes. The feedback loops chewing through their stabilizers, but if we don't vent the excess plasma, it'll fry us first." Her hands flew over the auxiliary panel, rerouting power with the precision of someone who'd jury-rigged nukes from scrap in worse spots. Brave didn't cover it. Lena was the kind who laughed at entropy. Zor pivoted, his elongated limbs clicking in agitation, venting plasma into the rift. "That's not in the protocols. The probability of chain reaction is our only shot." Alex cut in, already moving to the manual override. The ship lurched as another tendril of gravitational shear clawed at the shields. He could feel the pull in his bones, a whisper of weightlessness that promised to unmake them all. "Trust the math you taught us, Zor. But add a human twist. We don't just calculate survival. We steal it." The Krellian hesitated, his logical mind warring with the evidence of the past weeks. The humans' impossible raids on Vexari outposts, turning superior firepower into scrap with duct tape and defiance. Finally he nodded, fingers dancing across his controls to align the vents, adjusting trajectory. "Impact in 3, 2. Lena hit the release. Plasma erupted from the Endeavor's flanks in brilliant azure streams, lancing into the singularity like arrows into a storm. The rift convulsed, its event horizon flickering as the influx destabilized the delicate balance the Vexari had engineered. Alex watched the sensors. The Armada's lead ships twisted, caught in the backlash, their formations shattering like glass under a hammer. But the cost hit hard. The ship bucked violently, a bulkhead groaning as structural integrity dipped to 40%. Alarms screamed about hull breaches, and Alex smelled the acrid bite of burning circuits. "Lena, seal the lower decks," he barked, hauling himself to the comm station. She was already there, patching in auxiliary seals, but a spark jumped, singeing her arm. She winced but didn't stop. "Sealed, mostly. We're leaking atmo, but it'll hold till we clear the pull." Zor's voice rose over the din. Vexari signatures fading. The singularity is collapsing inward, collapsing on them. His eyes gleamed with reluctant awe. For a species that prized pure reason, witnessing humans bend physics with sheer audacity was rewriting his worldview. Alex slumped into the captain's chair as the Endeavor broke free, the stars steadying on the view screen. The rift imploded in a silent flash, a wound in space healing with violent finality. Cheers erupted from the crew, human and alien alike, but Alex's gaze lingered on the debris field where the Vexari fleet had been. Thousands of lives, logical to the end, erased by their own unyielding design. And the Endeavor? Scarred, limping, but alive. Lena slumped beside him, flexing her burned hand. "We did it. But next time maybe we bring more than grit." Zor approached, his posture less rigid. "There may not be a next time for confrontations like this. The galaxy will remember humans do not follow logic. They rewrite it." He paused, a rare warmth in his tone. "And we are wiser for allying with you." Alex nodded, the weight of command settling deeper. Victory tasted of ash and possibility. The stars ahead held new cautions, new alliances forged in fire. But as the Endeavor limped toward friendly space, one truth burned clear. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never calculate the same.